Brian Watkins to come in this morning, an attorney who was at the forefront of bringing body cameras here to San Diego and specifically the San Diego Police Department. You and I look at this both with the same feeling of disgust and discomfort, but probably through completely different filters. What do you see?
Well, I see a situation where cops can only use deadly force when they themselves are threatened with deadly force. They can't use deadly force to stop a fleeing suspect, or if a suspect fails to comply with what they consider lawful orders. You can only use deadly force when threatened with deadly force. Clearly, this video shows that the officer was not threatened with deadly force. The suspect may be trying to flee, but again, that is not proper to use deadly force in that situation.
So you say clearly, and again, I have no interest whatsoever in defending this officer. That is for his attorneys to do, and this will all come out in court eventually. But as a police officer, and somebody, again, as I say, who's made hundreds of these stops, I see this through slightly different eyes. The deadly force is the car. So there is deadly force potential here. If the officer actually believes that he is going to be dragged by this car and that his life is in danger, the deadly force exists. It's there. Now, whether the officer really believed that or not, you and I have no idea what's in that officer's head.
Well, we know what he believed. He believed what actually was happening is what was actually happening. He was not in front of the car where he was going to be run down by that vehicle.
But he testified that he thought his hand was going to get caught in the car. That this all happens again. Please understand, I'm not trying to defend the officer, but I look at it through different filters. This all happens in less than a split second. This happens in an instant, and all of your training, all of your experience, all of the scenarios that you've heard about flash through your mind, and you're expected to make this split-second decision about whether or not your life is in danger. Now, you can go back and look at that in slow motion. You can look at it 20, 30 times, and it appears to show that. But think about instant replay in baseball, for example. We show 4 or 5 different angles. They all appear to show a different thing. We have umpires who are positive they made the right call. Instant replay then shows that they made the wrong call. Was the umpire being deliberately, wrong? Were they trying to be malicious when they made that call? No.
Well, that's a different situation. I mean, looking at a video camera to see whether or not that first base, the ball got in that mitt before that foot touched the bag, that's something that a video camera can say, and we can double guess the umpire. Right. That's a split-second decision. Here, this officer knew his hand was on top of the door. He knew that he could have just let go and let the car go. The key is that you can't use deadly force to stop a fleeing suspect, and that's what he did here.
Yeah, and again, we have no disagreement about what constitutes deadly force and when deadly force can be used. I think the only question is what was going through the officer's mind in that split second that he'll now be judged for the rest of his life based on that. Now, what do we know about this officer's training as well? I can speak to the training of officers here in California through Police Officer Standards and Training. It's a wide body that covers over 750 law enforcement agencies and holds everybody to a very high standard. University of Cincinnati police officer, what do we know about his training and his experience?
I don't really know too much about his training. I know that he was a young guy. He was 25 years old. He hadn't been on the force a long time. The bottom line is he's assigned a gun, and he has the right to use that gun. So he needs to have the proper training. And when he does not employ the proper training or does whatever he does, and it's unlawful and it's wrong, you say that that cop is going to be judged by that action that he did in split second. That young man is dead forever.
Yeah, and again, believe me, I want to reemphasize this over and over again because I know that Facebook messages are already coming in and the emails are all coming in. And then people are going to say I'm trying to defend the officer. I'm not. It's a tragic death. One man has lost his life. This officer's life is now changed.
It's an unnecessary death. That's the key. Unnecessary.
And again, there's no disputing that after the fact. But what happened? And now this officer is not charged with premeditated murder. He didn't walk up to the car with the intent of killing anybody. No. Nobody is charging that. What is he actually charged with?
He's charged with voluntary manslaughter, which is voluntary manslaughter. He meant to fire his weapon and to shoot the individual, but he did not premeditate that action. But it is still caused his death, thus he is charged with murder.
All right, very good. Brian, thank you so much for coming in. Again, it's a spirited discussion, but hopefully in the vein of understanding, too, that a man lost his life tragically, unnecessarily, as you say, and that this officer is now going to have to answer for those actions.
And that's how important body cameras are, because now we have a third eye. Normally in those situations, we only had the officer's word, and we had nobody else's word because that person's dead. And so clearly the officer's word would stand. But now that we have the body cameras, we have that third person, telling us what happened.
Right, and I agree. I think that's a crucial tool, and I don't mind one bit wearing that body camera and being held accountable myself.
I thank you for it.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, still ahead. Mixed results.